A Republican hasn't been state controller since the 70s, but you mentioned that big endorsement from the LA Times. They usually go for more progressive candidates, but they said he was the most independent candidate to the party in power. By far the quickest remarks that he's made during the last week, and very different energy. I've been chasing the governor in his final stretch of urging voters to vote no on this recall. I was out here Monday. I've been out here the last 4 days, and all I've really seen is a lot of curious people who are walking by and just stunned by the sights that you see of all the armed troops and the police officers who are here protecting the Capitol. Bottom line, what they said is the more we can help Californians, the better. So they said we support moving forward with this $400 rebate, but let's also come together to suspend the gas tax. Senate Republicans only hold 9 out of the 40 seats that make up the state Senate. Minority Leader Scott Wilk points out that's about 9 million people his caucus is proud to represent. For context, 9 million people is about the same population as the state of New Jersey. And the shooting that left 6 people dead in downtown Sacramento happened just about a block away from where we're standing. In one of his final efforts to defeat the recall, Governor Gavin Newsom was joined by Vice President Kamala Harris, who talked about his leadership and what's at stake if he loses this election.
It's good to be home.
A homecoming of sorts for the vice president and Bay Area native who returned to the Golden State for one sole purpose.
So we are here to say today we fight for Gavin Newsom.
Harris called her longtime friend a great American leader and said the implications of Governor Newsom losing the recall stretch beyond California.
This recall campaign is about California, and it's about a whole lot more.
She also compared and contrasted his leadership to GOP governors in other states.
What's happening in Texas, what's happening in Georgia, what's happening around our country with these policies that are about attacking women's rights, reproductive rights, the voting rights.
The vice president, along with a growing list of high-profile politicians who are rallying for Newsom, are warning voters about the likelihood of similar policies being implemented in California if Larry Elder is successful in the recall.
The fact that the President of the United States is willing to come out before the election, that's a big deal, logistically and otherwise. And so I think all of us understand the consequential nature of this election.
During a campaign event in San Francisco's Mission District this week, Newsom met with Latino leaders as part of a push to get more support from the state's largest ethnic group, who makes up about 28% of registered voters.
Queremos apoyarlo a él.
We want to support him, says Reina Colores, who's been a Newsom supporter since he was mayor of San Francisco. Reina is one of many volunteers phone banking on the governor's behalf in hopes of encouraging those who are still on the fence to vote no in the recall.
Hemos recibido ayudas de él.
We've received help under his leadership, explains Reina, who shares how much it meant to receive a Golden State stimulus payment. The funds Reina is referring to is part of Newsom's $12 billion plan to provide relief to those hit hardest by the pandemic.
Esa tarjeta que nos llegó para mí fue perfecta.
The debit card came at a time when I needed it the most, says Reina, who notes she wasn't expecting to receive any help from the state.
It's the 6th recall effort.
As for Newsom, he's taking no breaks from now till Tuesday and hopes visits like the vice president's will help motivate the rest of his base to turn out on his behalf. For Inside the Issues, I'm Daniela Pardo.
With Latino voters turning out in larger numbers in recent elections, campaign strategists and community organizers agree all candidates need to be doing more to win this population's vote in the upcoming recall election.
As a proud Latina and community activist, Alma Lopez is using her voice to encourage other young voters to participate in the recall election.
Latinos are the largest voting bloc, so we have a very, very powerful say when it comes to how do we shape policy.
Alma is the executive director for Brown Issues, an organization that focuses on empowering youth to lead policy change.
When it comes to California and the power of the electorate, it is brown and it is young.
With Latinos making up nearly 40% of the state's population and 28% of eligible voters, Alma stresses it's crucial they understand the importance of having their voice heard.
One of the things that Brown Issues does very intentionally is to not just educate, but also mobilize our Latino community.
Through platforms like Instagram, where Brown Issues has more than 260,000 followers, Alma is helping her community understand everything they need to know about the recall.
With Brown Issues, we're a very distinct Latino voice in directly sending that message to our gente so that they understand the context of the recall, that they understand what is at stake, right? If the governor is no longer our governor, and who are the other candidates.
Also encouraging Latinos to become more civically engaged is Pastor Samuel Rodriguez, who's an independent voter and worked for the last 3 presidents.
I would like to see a Latino town hall. A Latino town hall with all the candidates together. And in both Spanish and English, communicating the values of the Latino community.
Rodriguez favors recalling the governor and says the determining factor was when he closed places of worship during the pandemic.
In the first 3 weeks, I publicly made a statement and complimented him. But then he took a hard turn, locked down churches, went cuckoo for Cocoa Puff.
And keeping a close eye on the impact Latinos can have in the recall is political consultant Rob Stutzman.
It's an interesting moment for the Latino vote in California. It's diverse, but it's becoming more engaged. And it absolutely is going to be largely the determining factor of the future of California politics.
Stutzman, who is Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications for former Governor Schwarzenegger, adds it's important both parties do more to reach young Latino voters.
They should be paid attention to because they're going to become increasingly important to how elections are decided in California.
As for Alma,
whatever party it is has to step up their game when it comes to showcasing their commitment to the Latino community.
Something she'll be watching closely in the weeks to come.
The pile of compost that's behind me is made up of things like banana peels, eggshells, and coffee grounds. By keeping those materials out of landfills, it's not only benefiting the environment, it's also helping farmers produce healthier foods.
I love eggs. Gonna crack them.
It all starts in the kitchen.
That will become calcium in compost on the soil.
Composting, also known as nature's way of recycling, has become a lifestyle Robert Reed has embraced for more than 2 decades. Robert is the spokesman for San Francisco's recycling company, Recology.
It actually makes you feel good because you feel like you're doing something that's helping address this unprecedented challenge of climate change.
While the process of separating scraps such as avocado skin, carrot tops, and orange peels is new for a lot of Californians, Robert explains San Francisco pioneered this method more than 26 years ago.
Our success in this program has helped inspire a statewide law that all municipalities in California have to reduce the amount of compostable material they send to landfills by 75% by 2025.
This means cities like LA will soon be required to keep compostable items out of regular trash bins.
These food scraps are the most important type of garbage that exists. This is where the nutrients are. This is where the carbon is. And we don't want food scraps going to a landfill and creating methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas.
Robert adds methane is far more potent than carbon dioxide. According to the EPA, landfills are the 3rd largest source of human-related methane emissions. So instead of going to landfills, the scraps collected from the green bins, such as the one at Robert's house, end up at composting facilities where they're transformed into compost.
This facility receives 1,200 tons of food scraps and yard trimmings every day.
One of the first steps after the waste arrives is separating it from other trash that can't be composted. The whole process takes about 2 months to complete.
You see how rich it is? Soft. It's a natural sponge.
A natural sponge that helps attract and retain water, which is why compost has benefited farmers like Frank Oligari, especially during times of drought.
When it rains like 6 inches, the water only penetrates like 3 or 4 inches into the compost. So that's telling me it's retaining a lot of water. So if I put that compost in the soil, it's going to be holding on to that water too.
Frank says using compost has also helped him save money by having to purchase less synthetic fertilizer for his olives, grapes, almonds, and walnuts. As for Robert,
all these things came from a farm, and they ought to be turned into compost and go back onto a farm.
The compost enthusiast is hopeful the new law will lead to more states doing their part to protect the environment by reducing methane emissions. For Inside the Issues, I'm Daniela Pardo.